This one's really disturbing. A Metro mother accused of murdering her own daughter because she thought she was possessed by the devil. We want to warn you, the details in this story are graphic.
And Marianne, this one is really hard to hear. Juanita Gomez is here at the Oklahoma County Jail. She's facing a first-degree murder charge, and court documents show that she admitted to police she stuffed a crucifix down her daughter's throat, and she says she watched her daughter die. A horrific ending to a mother-daughter relationship.
It was very sad to hear what happened.
A neighbor who didn't want to be identified, shocked hearing a murder happen just 2 doors down. The crime scene at 15th and McKinley, just a couple blocks away from the city's bustling Plaza District. Police responded to Juanita Gomez's home on a Chuck welfare call Saturday afternoon. Officers say they found 33-year-old Geneva Gomez lying on the ground with the large crucifix on her chest, her body placed in the shape of a cross.
I can't imagine a mother doing that to her daughter, you know. I don't have any words.
Court records show Juanita Gomez told police she believed her daughter was possessed by the devil, that Juanita Gomez punched her daughter and forced a crucifix and religious medallion down her throat until blood came out of her daughter's mouth. Monday, candles sit outside Gomez's home. We're told Geneva Gomez was just visiting her mother, who neighbors said kept to herself.
Yeah, she was a very quiet person. Like, she didn't really talk to people. Like, she was just in her own little world.
Juanita Gomez was arrested in 2003 on drug and weapon charges. The DA dismissed most of those, and she didn't serve any time in prison for pleading guilty to possession of drug proceeds.
An uproar in South Carolina after a high school bans the American flag from a football game. It happened over the weekend. Travelers Rest High School opposing rival Berea High, which has a large Hispanic population. The principal of Travelers defending the decision to ban the flag, saying, quote, "Any decision to not allow the American flag to be used in an improper, taunting, unsportsmanlike manner is first and foremost in the interest of promoting the safety and well-being of all in attendance at school events." Students who tried to enter the stadium with the American flag were turned away, sparking a firestorm on social media. To Army veteran Pete Hegseth. What's going on here? Overly sensitivity, extreme sensitivity? What do you make of it?
Well, there is. You've clearly got feckless administrators here who don't want a scene, so they're saying, let's get rid of this flag that might irritate a few people. Political correctness has infected administrators who don't want to be a part of anything that looks controversial.
Are we forcing the retreat of the American flag?
Very much so. We're forcing, well, think about all the retreats we're already having, whether it's capitalism, traditional values, faith, different retreats we've already had in public spheres. All of those things add up to what America has represented, what our founders gave us. And you start to abandon all of those, you start to abandon a lot of the symbols of America.
This U.S. citizen was once a radicalized extremist.
I went to prison for propagandizing on behalf of a terrorist organization.
He recruited people to join Al-Qaeda.
It became a call to go out onto your back porch and just start killing civilians.
We couldn't tell you then what we can tell you now. His name is Jesse Morton, and he has a new job as a research fellow at George Washington University's Center for Cyber and Homeland Security, where he'll be doing research and writing, but not teaching.
So what can you, given your background, contribute to this program?
Well, I mean, I have a background in radicalizing others. I understand the mentality. I understand also what attracts people to the ideology. I also understand how to counter that as a result.
The hope that Morton can stop others from becoming extremists. But can he be trusted? Take a look at this story from CNN's Drew Griffin nearly 7 years ago, when Morton called himself Yunus Abdullah Muhammad.
We're commanded to terrorize the disbelievers. And this is a religion, like I said.
Commanded to terrorize the
In the Quran says very clearly in the Arabic language, Turhibuna. This means terrorize them. It's a command from Allah.
We showed the story to Seamus Hughes, who hired Morton to work at George Washington.
That you see the United States as the enemy it really is.
Is this the man that you know now?
No. That was Jesse who he was. It's not who Jesse is now. He is reformed. He's changed.
Do you trust him?
Yes, I trust him. We did our due diligence. So I used to be at the intelligence community. I called my old colleagues, the prosecuting attorney that worked on his case. I talked to the FBI, of which he's been working with for the last year.
We have been following new developments about emails threatening mass casualties at USDA facilities across the U.S. Those threats were serious enough that facilities in 5 states, including right here in Colorado, were shut down today. You're hearing from investigators those threats apparently came from the same address.
From the same address. They're still trying to determine and how credible those threats are. Several facilities here in Fort Collins, including this one behind me, closed as a matter of precaution. Federal police and Department of Agriculture Security have ramped up patrols on the federal campus in Fort Collins. Notes like this posted on the front doors of at least 3 buildings, closed until further notice. A group of agricultural administrators from across the U.S. were slated to meet in one of these buildings in Fort Collins today, but couldn't because the front doors were locked. They moved the meeting to a restaurant downtown. We ran into them as we were leaving. They knew nothing about the nature of the threats. In addition to Fort Collins, USDA facilities were also closed in Hamden, Connecticut, Beltsville, Maryland, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Carneysville and Leetown, West Virginia.
Meantime, police in Nogales, Sonora have found a border tunnel that was still under construction. It was found when Mexican officials spotted an opening in a cemetery. The tunnel extends 46 feet into the U.S. Inside, agents found digging tools, power cords, a generator, and a swamp cooler.
City council members are trying to come up with a solution at the San Jose Police Department. They could declare a state of emergency at a meeting later today. Officers say they are overworked and forced to stay in RVs.
And here in San Jose, which used to be considered America's safest big city, they're now considering a state of emergency. That would shift 47 police detectives back out onto regular street patrol to try to cover more of the beats. As we first reported last week, and Michelle mentioned, some officers are so overworked right now, they're sleeping in RVs outside of police headquarters. Mandatory overtime forcing them to work up to 17-hour days. It was Measure B pension reform that voters approved back in 2012 that cut officers' pay and benefits and triggered a mass exodus of officers leaving the department. There is a new ballot measure coming up, Measure F, which would boost officer pay to hire and retain more cops, but that's not going to happen overnight.
We're not going to retain officers. We're not going to recruit officers. We're going to keep on sleeping in a parking lot until we can get Measure F across the line and certain negotiations to get over the line as well.
Churches in the UK are receiving counter-terrorism advice following the murder of a Catholic priest in France. On July 26th, 85-year-old Father Jacques Hamel was taken hostage in his church and killed by 2 men with knives. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack. Now, National Church Watch, an organization focused on security for the clergy, is issuing new counterterrorism advice based on the government's 2009 directive on church security. The new measures, which are still just a draft for now, are mostly aimed at small local churches that have less security measures in place than large institutions. Recommendations include hiring security to guard the doors of churches during services and installing CCTV cameras and alarms.
We begin today's program in Kyrgyzstan, where at least 1 person is dead and several others wounded after a car bomb exploded in the compound of the Chinese embassy in the capital, Bishkek. The incident happened at around 10 a.m. local time earlier today. According to officials, the attacker ran the gates of the embassy and was later killed in the explosion. Now, China's news agency Xinhua reports that 2 security guards and 3 local people working at the embassy were wounded in the incident. Kyrgyz police are now working to establish the identity of the attacker, while China's foreign ministry has called for a thorough investigation.
The death toll has risen to 22 following a suicide car bombing in Somalia's capital city of Mogadishu on Tuesday. 30 people were also injured in the attack, with victims including both soldiers and civilians. The attack took place outside a popular hotel close to the presidential palace. The information minister said that a meeting of security officials was underway inside the hotel at the time of the blast. One minister and some journalists were injured in the attack. The militant group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it targeted the hotel because it was, quote, close to the presidential palace and also home to apostates and unbelievers.
On Tuesday, ISIS announced the death of Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, its spokesman and one of its most senior leaders. It's unclear exactly who or what is responsible for his death. The terrorist group said Adnani was martyred while surveying the operations to repel the military campaigns in Aleppo. His death is a massive victory for the coalition forces fighting against ISIS. NBC reported that Adnani oversaw the Islamic State's propaganda and developed the strategy of ISIS inspiring lone wolf attackers in Western countries. Thomas Jocelyn of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies told the New York Times, Adnani is much more than just the mouthpiece of this group. He is heavily involved in external operations. He is sort of the administrative yay or nay at the top of the pyramid. Adnani had a $5 million bounty on his head. Senior intelligence officials said the U.S. wanted him dead more than any other ISIS member, including ISIS leader and founder Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Adnani was reportedly one of just 3 surviving ISIS founders left from the original 43. It was believed that he would have become the next leader of ISIS after Baghdadi.
Daesh has also suffered setbacks in Iraq. Territory controlled by the terror group has shrunk by 12% in the first 6 months of this year, according to defense intelligence firm IHS. Mosul remains one of its last strongholds in the country. Meanwhile, an investigation by the Associated Press has unearthed dozens of mass graves in Iraq and Syria.
Talal Murad fled to safety when Daesh fighters attacked his uncle's farm near the Sinjar Mountains. The Associated Press says its investigation found that thousands of people have been buried in mass graves by Daesh. Talal Murad says his father was among them.
One of them started to ask who wants to be a Muslim. He repeated that once or twice and no one accepted. He said, come on outside. There were too many of us there, so they forced some of us to lie down on the ground. And it was then when my uncle told us to run because they were going to kill all of us.
As Daesh continues to lose ground in Iraq, experts believe they'll uncover many more mass graves.
There is more to Syria than the 5-year civil war. That's the message of Syria's tourism ministry as it tries to reinvent the image of the war-torn country. This video was released on the ministry's website on Tuesday, filmed at the country's famous Golden Sands beach in Tartus. Back in 2010, Syria attracted 8.5 million foreign visitors and tourism was booming. But 5 years on, tourism, like much of the country, has been destroyed. In Aleppo, once famous for its cultural heritage and its citadel, regime airstrikes continue to claim civilian lives. In an attempt to change the country's image, the government has allowed more foreign press inside Damascus to showcase parts of the capital where the war seems far away. But the civil war shows no signs of ending. Despite the grim picture, the government presents another image. Syria is always beautiful.
South Korea has confirmed that 2 of its nationals remain missing in China near the North Korean border. Seoul's foreign ministry spokesperson Cho Jun-hyuk told reporters today that a South Korean consulate in the region initially received reports of 7 missing people, but 5 have since been located. Cho noted that the growing concern over possible acts of terrorism or abductions by Pyongyang, especially in the wake of a string of high-profile defections to Seoul by North Koreans. Now, threats from the North have recently led the South Korean embassy in Beijing to issue an emergency notice to its citizens to avoid the border area and contact with North Koreans.
South Korea says it is considering deploying nuclear submarines along its coastal borders. South Korean Defense Minister Han Min-soo says the military has not made a final decision on the deployment yet. Last Wednesday, Pyongyang test-fired a ballistic missile from a submarine. Its range puts all of South Korea and possibly parts of Japan within striking distance.
Russia has announced plans to position a new coastal defense military division along its eastern coast, with some troops expected to be stationed approximately 50 miles from Alaska. The new division, expected to be in place by 2018, will be responsible for defending Russia's sparsely populated Far East, stretching from the Alaskan border to the Kuril Islands, which are disputed with Japan. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu indicated the new division will be expected to ensure control of the closed sea zones of the Kuril Islands and the Bering Strait, cover the routes of Pacific Fleet forces deployment in the Far Eastern and Northern Sea zones, and increase the combat viability of naval strategic nuclear forces. It's obvious that this is not just ordinary news, not least because what we're talking about is the creation of a serious military force just a stone's throw away from the United States.
The key issue expected to dominate September's G20 summit in Hangzhou, China, will be global growth. More specifically, the slowdown in global growth.
Clearly, it's slow growth. I mean, in a word, what basically the world can harm the world much quicker than anything else is very slow growth and unequal growth. And right now, we really are subject to both internally, unequal growth, in the sense that you have widening inequalities, and externally.
The largest economy in Latin America is experiencing its worst recession since the 1930s. Prices of commodities like oil, sugar, and coffee have crashed since the beginning of last year. And with surging inflation, consumer confidence has plummeted. Unemployment is on the rise, and making things worse, a major corruption scandal, ongoing political turmoil, and the outbreak of Zika virus have all plagued Brazil. Oil and gas account for more than 60% of Russia's exports, making the sharp decline in world oil prices bad news for the Russian economy. The Russian ruble has much depreciated as a result of both the price decline and Western economic sanctions. But experts still believe a full-blown collapse is unlikely as the country pivots towards other options. With one of the world's highest GDP growth rates of 7.6%, India's major sectors are agriculture, IT, and financial services. And the government is keen to attract foreign investment for its infrastructure projects and rural development. However, bureaucracy, corruption, and red tape have hampered for the growth, and challenges can be found throughout many levels of government. Today, the world's second largest economy sees its GDP surpass $10 trillion. China now finds itself facing new challenges, shifting from the old development model, which heavily relies on manufacturing and investment, to a more knowledge-based economy and service-driven growth. Innovation, environmental issues, and bridging existing income gaps are not things that can be done overnight. The struggle in attracting foreign investors, this is a main challenge South Africa faces. But it also has problems with infrastructure, including electrical blackouts as well as industrial strikes that slow production and discourage investors. Violent crime and corruption are widespread. Employment levels are high and highly skilled labor is in short supply. Yet, immigration laws make it difficult to hire foreign workers.
That isn't snow you're looking at, that is hail. This was wild yesterday evening in Colorado Springs. 2 feet of hail came down in Colorado Springs. This was all just east of the downtown area. They were also dealing with flash flooding. Now, these thunderstorms, they started to pop up late afternoon, early evening, and that's all the damage there. Now, fire department actually, they had to send out snow plows to clear all this because it was clogging drains. Also, there was a lot of flash flooding, causing some drivers to be in need of rescue. They also had to close some roads. Luckily, though, no injuries were reported.
A volcano in Mexico is spewing a large column of gas and ash more than 2.5 kilometers into the sky. The fire volcano, or Colima Volcano, as it's officially known, is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Mexico contains more than 1,000 volcanoes, but only 14 are considered active. The country has seen at least 3 major eruptions in the last century.
Two earthquakes have rattled one of the largest volcanoes in Iceland. The quakes at the Katla volcano struck early on Monday local time. Now they measured about 4.2 and 4.5 magnitude. Now, a scientist described the situation as, quote, a little bit unusual. They've been waiting for an eruption at this volcano for a long time. There's a location of it about 87 miles east of Reykjavik. That's the capital of Iceland. Now, this eruption, they've been waiting for about 50 years. It's been nearly a century since Katla's last major eruption.